Okay, so we are back and we are going to be looking at game two of SKT versus Afreeca. So spoiler alert, SKT does win this game, but let's figure out how they got there. Let's figure out how they got there. So SKT's on red side this game, and a couple key things are banned. The Elise is banned, and that's pretty key. Elise provides too much early pressure. Zach does the same thing, so he's going to be banned. But this is a little weird. Usually, you let red side ban Zach because he's considered to be so ridiculously strong that he's worth a first pick no matter what. But this is patch 715, so there are other tank junglers on the table that have a lot of pressure. Let's definitely not forget about Maokai, Sejuani, because these are viable picks. And Gragas is huge. So all of these are amazing. Anyway, and then Afreeca goes ahead and they target ban the Tristana that SKT was using to end the laning phase quickly, and that helped them snowball the game really hard. Um, and then they banned the Galio, which provides for lots of map pressure, um, and lots of it allowed SKT to have an answer um, to forced plays. Because you can't just engage on anyone because then a Galio ult will just come out of nowhere. You have to account that into the system. You have to account that into your total play. And then we have Rakan here. Playmaker support, very
It's a
strong.
single game on the season.
Let's turn that off. We don't need that. Um, and what does SKT choose for their third ban? So they go ahead and they ban out the Renekton, and Renekton is really strong just because he has a lot of pressure in the top lane. He can win pretty much any matchup, and if Renekton gets ahead, he can kind of start to take over the game because not only will he basically be one-shotting squishies, but he has a long-range engage, including the slice and dice. That's 800 range. And then you have the 1.5 second stun. It's a 0.75 second stun if it's not with 50 Fury. So because Caitlyn's on the table, Afreeca goes ahead and they grab Caitlyn, and we all know that when we have Caitlyn on our team, Caitlyn is going to win the bottom lane. And that's just going to generally happen at the highest level of play because people are able to use Caitlyn to her absolute most power. So the Caitlyn, first pick, automatically wins bottom lane. There's a couple champions that you could draft into that. Varus. Varus is very good against Caitlyn in certain situations. Sivir is decent against Caitlyn, and Sivir is amazing late game. So I wouldn't be surprised if SKT used that. And I know that Sivir is popular in China, and I am a very fond user of Sivir as well. So SKT are going to go ahead and first pick their jungler. I'm assuming this is a jungle Gragas. Unless they wanted to put top Gragas and have a jungle. This is, I think they want flex picks. I think that's what they're looking for. So I do know this is jungle Gragas because I have seen the highlights of this game. But we do know that in this stage of the ban phase and the pick phase, that it could go to top. It could go top. So the Afreeca has to be careful about what they're going to put into the top lane. But there are definitely lots of tops available. We don't need to be very picky. There's Kled, there's Fiora, there's Jace. Not like you would see a lot of Jace. they played Kennen last game. It didn't go so well, the Kennen, so I wouldn't really recommend that again unless you're going to build a team comp that's more centered around it. And you kind of have to camp that Kennen because you want him to be a high damage source and you want him to snowball very heavily. So Kennen's very good at snowballing because his base damages are so high. So he can naturally get kills himself. But if he doesn't get rewarded that gold, his base damages are only going to cap at a certain point, whereas his scalings are not as high. Anyway, SKT goes ahead and they pick up Kalista, and Kalista's super strong right now because she's a counter to Braum. That's what you usually pick into Braum, and anybody who talks to me or watches my other videos will know that I talk about Braum a lot because I believe he is one of the strongest supports in the game, if not the strongest. And the only champions that I would even think of drafting besides Braum are Taric. And I don't like Taric because Taric loses the laning phase. Like no matter what. So I do like Braum because he provides a safe laning phase. He's the anti-projectiles, which Kalista doesn't worry about because she is Rend, and he has a lot of pressure in team fights with a lot of disengage or even engage. So let's go see how Afreeca responds to SKT here. They're going to want an ADC that doesn't mind laning, or they're going to want a support that doesn't mind laning against Kalista. They go ahead and they hover the Thresh here. Thresh is just good in every situation. There's no reason to really talk more about that. We all know how useful Thresh is. They hovered the Sejuani, so they might be considering that. And a full engaged teamfight comp would not be bad for Afreeca, because if they have the stronger picks, they know that SKT is going to draft something similar. So if they can capitalize more on SKT's mistakes, and maybe if they have the stronger teamfight comp, SKT will be able to be run over in those forced fights where an SKT has to contest objectives, kind of like Baron. Or Fire Dragon, and those can really change a game and make the game one. They go ahead and they lock in Cassiopeia for Faker. So Cassiopeia, this is pre nerf, because Cassiopeia was nerfed in patch 7.16, I believe, right? Yeah, I think that's all right. So she's going to have an oppressive laning phase. This is going to be really, really high DPS. So you're looking at high DPS, and you have a lot of burst in the carry role, because once Kalista's Rend pops out, you're going to be doing 20, 30 to 40% of a target's health, depending on how many times you hit them. Anyway, as far as bans go, Faker does not want an oppressive laning phase. He wants to be able to take over the lane. So they go ahead and they pinch mid lane. They take out the Orianna, they take out the Talia. Both of these are lane very decently against Cassiopeia. So it's nice to have them out of the way, especially the Talia. The Talia is very, very annoying. And Afreeca go to take out Alistar, so they don't let SKT have a big team fight, or a big dive support, since Alistar is really good at diving. I don't know. It just bothers me that I feel like SKT wasn't going to pick Alistar in the first place. I may be wrong. Because I don't know. I'm not really sure. That's a tough decision. Alistar definitely would be good for the bottom lane because it's a very good matchup with Kalista. I guess that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of that really oppressive laning phase, and if they have a really oppressive laning phase, then maybe it will nullify some of the Caitlyn's power in the lane, because Caitlyn's still going to win lane. The only thing that would cause Caitlyn to not win lane is mispositioning against the Blitzcrank. Anyway, they also banned Kennen, which I don't know, it just throws me off. This seems like a useless ban to me. Like, SKT is not interested in the Kennen, at least not in my book. So Afreeca goes in, they finishes strong. They finish strong with a Syndra mid, so Syndra's actually decent into Cassiopeia. It depends how much Cassiopeia prioritizes that Abyssal Mask, because Cassiopeia is going to be building that in this matchup no matter what. We know this because you want a lot of magic resist against Syndra so that you're able to stay in lane, you're able to trade with her, and you're able to abuse her. But now the Syndra is going to be targeting Peanut, or not Peanut, Callista. Oh, Jesus. I like fuck up with these names all the time. And it may force Bang on Callista to buy Hexdrinker. So they end up finishing off with Shogoth, which I really like because they're going to put Shogoth in the top lane. And Shogoth is going to have an oppressive laning phase once he hits level 6. And it's going to give them a lot of pressure on Baron and Dragon. Because Shogoth can eat them, and even Rift Herald too. Let's not forget about all of our important objectives. So SKT has to finish off with a top laner. Nar's on the table. Gnar, Kled. Trundle is a pretty good pick. He's a great split pusher, and Trundle's actually really good into Shogoth. Specifically this matchup. Just because Shogoth has a hard time killing Trundle, unless he like one-shots Trundle. Because Trundle's ultimate gives him too much healing for Shogoth to get Trundle low enough to ult. And then Trundle has a lot of DPS, and if Trundle ends up winning the lane because Shogoth makes a small mistake, then Trundle has a lot of pressure on turrets. Trundle can literally destroy turrets really fast, especially if he goes for that Triforce. He can be a really nasty split pusher since he can chomp turrets. So let's go ahead and get into the game here. Whoa. Sorry for the lag on YouTube. What the fuck? Okay. So nothing happens level 1. Looks like both blue buffs are warded by the enemy. That's going to be something that gives us a little bit of information, but it gives both teams information about when their jungler, the enemy jungler, is going to go ahead and take blue. It gives you information about whether or not they started blue. This is really interesting. So I don't know how this happened, but this is the second time this has happened recently in a professional game. I think this happened in CLS. It might have even happened in NALCS, just like literally in the past few weeks. But the jungler didn't start an item. So if you notice, Sejuani has a red buff and she's level 1. This is going to be really bad for Afreeca, because Sejuani is going to be her pathing is like ruined. The best way for her to get level 2 right now, I think, is to go to Wraiths, kill some of the small Wraiths, maybe finish Wraiths if she thinks it's efficient or not, then go to blue. See, this is just a big problem. This is a really big problem because you have red buff and blue buff, right? And blue is generally for clear and sustain. But the red buff you want to use for ganking. So because she took the red buff first, and now her build path, or not her build path, but her ganking path is ruined, and her general jungle pathing is going to be very odd, she's not going to be able to use that red buff for early ganks. So uh, we're not going to see a lot of pressure out from the Sejuani, and um, hopefully for Afreeca in the early game, Gragas isn't able to put out the amount of pressure that you would expect him to. But Gragas did also start red, but it is much more likely, since he did not forget his jungle item, that he will be able to use this red in a gank. I'd just like to note that we see an ancient coin on Blitzcrank, so we are going to see some cheesy stuff pulled out by SKT. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch. So Spirit goes straight to his blue buff, which may be the better choice. He can solo the blue buff. He can use Smite for it, and then he'll have the blue buff so he can start clearing. And because his blue buff helps his clear, maybe he can clear the other camps faster and try to catch up. Now, it is a little bit easier because jungle catch-up XP does exist. So it isn't all lost for him. So we see both flashes come out from the Afreeca bottom lane, and a flash from Peanut, and it looks like, ooh, wow, that was a good hook. This is horrible for SKT. Oh, but Faker roams down, he gets a kill himself. Alright, so like let's look at all of that. So this is a very popular strategy by a lot of junglers. It doesn't really matter what elo you are. But it's also a strategy by the supports and top laners. See, what I tell people when they play top lane or they play support, I tell them if they feel safe to go into the enemy jungle and to get rid of the red plant. And same for the top laner right here. And why I tell them to do this is because if it's not here, then it's going to be a 6-minute cooldown, and it's impossible for their jungler to pass over this wall without using some sort of spell. And if they have to use that spell, then that spell will be on cooldown. And if this bush is warded, then you'll be able to escape the gank no matter what. There will be no surprise. There will be no bad things happening to you. But this red plant is still up, so Peanut opts to take the red plant. So let's watch very carefully. So Afreeca didn't see Peanut come in. They didn't actually have it warded at all. But Wolf goes ahead and he flash Qs Kramer, which I don't know if I would have recommended. Let's look at it again, because I don't think it matters which person you hook. So let's talk about something a little bit interesting theoretically. If these two are in a line, is it possible for you to place a hook and hit both of them? And what I mean by that is to be in some sort of line. So like instead of flashing from here to here, but flashing from here to here and hooking here. And what this does is it provides an instantaneous hook that forces 2 flashes for 1. That would have been a higher level of play from SKT Wolf, but anyway, Peanut comes in. The Flay keeps Peanut off of Tucson. Tucson flashes away. The heal comes out from Kramer, and then Tucson's hook comes up, and Peanut has been chasing for too long, and he only has his first jungle item, so he gets taken down. And this is really bad because we know that Caitlyn wins lane phase already. Now she's ahead, and she can abuse this. Now she can abuse. She has a fresh red buff. And I think Caitlyn is actually safe enough to stay in this lane until she has BF Sword. Now that she has red buff, there is absolutely nothing stopping her. Now we did see that. Let's make another note because Afreeca does make this mistake, but right here, Faker actually is in the mid lane right now, and he pushes out the mid lane, and he disappears into the bottom side. Now this is in vision. This was seen by Afreeca Freaks. So during this entire encounter, I guess Tucson and Kramer were not looking or not paying attention. But wow, that courage of the Colossus. Um, there's a ping came out. No, I think it was completely unnoticed by Afreeca. And that's perfectly fine. Thresh goes down to Cassiopeia, so Cassiopeia is going to be winning lane, and Caitlyn's going to be winning lane, and that's going to be a fact. Those are facts that we currently know. So there won't be anything interesting unless we see heavy jungler influence in one of these lanes. We do know that Peanut now doesn't have his flash, Bang doesn't have his flash, and Wolf doesn't have his flash. So it actually would be really smart of Spirit to go ahead and gank bottom lane, knowing that he has flash and he can force something heavy. And if he makes a successful gank, then he will get back into the game from his early mistake. Wow, what the fuck was that damage on the Scuttle Crab? Marin playing safe, but pushing Antara into tower. Marin, go ahead and get a ward on golems to let us know when Gragas takes golems, because Gragas does like to take golems. It's fairly easy for him. So this is really uncomfortable for me right now because Faker's staying in lane past his 720 gold tier back. So we know that Faker is actually ready to purchase his tier of the goddess, and he is opting to stay in lane. I would suspect pressure from the jungler and then Faker just using all of his mana to push out so that he's able to back safely. He is down in levels though because of his roam to bottom lane. He missed some CS and the experience for that. Duel opted into by Marin, but out-traded by the Trundle. That's generally occurs. We know that Trundle steals AD. Spirit finds Peanut in the jungle, places a fresh ward onto his golems, and Peanut's going to be forced to back. Heavy Blitzcrank hook came out from Wolf, and nothing too exciting happening. Peanut keeping the golem in the bush so that Sejuani can't smite it away. Very interesting play. And it looks like Peanut's going to be moving into the top lane to soak up some CS unless Antara wants to TP back to lane here. That would be interesting. No. Antara TP's back into lane. This is really interesting to me because it's the same thing that happened last game where Antara opts to TP into lane. to force the enemy to TP top or miss CS experience. And he first backs a Tiamat, so this is a popular build by Trundle. And Marin is backing really far away, and this is going to be a little bit of free damage on the tower if Antara takes it. No, Antara isn't pushing in. Antara just started a recall. I don't know what's going through his head right now. He gets some deep vision. He gets vision on the Gromp. I think Marin wants to be able to save his teleport, but I don't think that Antara is going to allow him to not teleport to lane without missing CS. Now that Antara has the Tiamat, Antara can constantly push in top lane and force Marin to CS under tower. Yeah, Marin's holding on to a lot of gold here. Let's notice that he is holding to at least as much gold to buy Tiamat. So he goes ahead and he opts for Bramble Vest. So for that little damage that you're going to see coming out from that, and he gets some mana, and he gets a Doran's Ring. So he wants to really sustain in this lane. He even got potions, so he doesn't think that the sustain from his passive is going to be enough. I find this all really interesting because he purely wants to stay in the lane. He doesn't want to bother the Trundle at all. Hook coming down onto Tucson. Tucson responds with another hook. Does not hit. Bang jumps into a trap. Yordle trap takes him down to about half HP. Stands still there for a minute. Goes ahead and takes the Piltover Peacemaker as well. That's going to be a problem for him. Oh, we see Peanut flash Eing into the mid lane to take down Kuro with his ultimate. Faker follows that one up, takes the gold for it. Wolf also engages onto Tucson in the bottom lane. The Ignite is dropped and Tucson flashes over the wall, tries to get a return hook, but does not hit its target. And it looks like in the mid lane, Faker was diving really hard with Peanut. They got a lot of pressure onto Spirit, and they've got Spirit really low. And it looks like Peanut's going to be pushing in the mid lane, and Faker opts to move top lane. So Antara is going to be engaging onto Marin here. There's the W coming out from Cassiopeia. Marin is 100% dead. He can't get out of this by himself. And it looks like they're going to push in the top lane here. And this is really good because I talked about how Trundle can eat turrets. And he can literally eat turrets because he can chomp turrets. So if he stays for a minute here, he can get some turret damage, and it looks like he's going to be opting to do that. He also has the attack speed buff from his W. But Kuro comes in, says, please don't touch my turret. I'm going to take this CS, and you're going to leave. But now, as for the state of the game, we have big problems when it comes to Afreeca. They are winning bot lane. But they aren't winning bot 100% right now. And why I say that is because Blitzcrank has Flash and Tucson does not. And even though Tucson does have Ignite over Wolf's Ignite, Wolf's Ignite was burned on last time Tucson had the Flash. But Bang has Heal over Kramer. So in a real duel, in a real situation, SKT has a lot of outplay potential onto Kramer, even though Kramer has extra gold. And I find it really interesting because Kramer actually opted to buy Berserker's Greaves, so he did not buy damage. So if, say, he bought BF Sword, and boots, if he was able to afford both, then because let's talk about why he bought tier 2 boots. He bought tier 2 boots to dodge the Blitzcrank Q. That's 100% it. That there's nothing else. And maybe escape ganks. They're like, mobility is very strong. Mobility can help you a lot. But when it comes to a champion like Caitlyn, where you're constantly using Piltover Peaksmaker, and you're using your Yordle Snaptraps, and you always want to be abusing your headshots, it's very difficult for me to believe that it would be a good decision to buy tier 2 boots before buying any damage. Whereas on Kalista, you like tier 2 boots because a lot of your damage comes from your rend and not from your auto attacks themselves. And that's why Kalista also ends up buying Blade of the Ruin King, because then she gets to stack up a bunch of autos into you and then rend. And it also helps her with her mobility because it helps her passive. But let's look at the big problem for Afreeca Freaks right now. It's that Faker is currently fed. He's currently about to finish his first item, that Abyssal Mask that I was talking about. So he's going to be resistant to Cho, Sedge, and Syndra. In fact, they would probably have to Syndra ult him, Sedge ultimate, and Cho ultimate just to kill Faker once he finishes that item. And Faker also has his tier stacking up. And so Faker is going to be a big problem because he has all of this gold that no one else has right now. And even though you can't say that bot lane is going horrible for Afreeca Freaks, even though that they are down. They're down a summoner spell since we have 3 over here and they have 2 over here. But top is not doing so well either because Shogoth doesn't exactly beat Trundle. What is very interesting about that matchup in the top lane though is Trundle looks like he's going to be going for quite a bit of damage. I don't know if he's going straight for Titanic Hydra. I don't know if he's going for Ravenous Hydra, but my next recommendation for Trundle is actually the Sheen. No, that's the Phage and then the Sheen. Phage is more important. He is going to be going for Ravenous Hydra. That is going to be the Trundle build. He's going to be going for Ravenous Hydra, and he's going to be getting a lot of damage. And what that does is allows him to really sustain in the lane. So Trundle can never be brought low enough by Cho'Gath in order to be ulted and eaten. And that's if he can force it that way so that he's never able to die. Well, then that's how he's going to play, because it's if not being able to kill someone ever is a lot stronger than having a lot of damage in the first place. And in this situation, Trundle gets to have both. He gets to be unkillable and he gets to build damage. So the only way that they would end up killing Trundle is if Sejuani intervened in the top lane, which would be very... Sejuani doesn't have a lot of reason to go top. Cho'Gath is going to naturally scale up, but it's really not her prerogative to go top lane, because Sejuani wants to be focusing on the Syndra and the Caitlyn, because those are your 2 primary carries, so Sejuani wants to get them fed. And as for SKT, it's a little bit different. It looks like Sejuani came into the... Hold on. Oh no. Oh, Bang's going to be taken out. Okay, so let's watch this again, because I was too busy talking. Because I was saying that Peanut wants to camp Faker and Bang because those are his 2 primary carries, and that's who he wants to get fed. But let's watch this play in the mid lane, because this is really interesting. So Sejuani Q's over the wall, ults, misses the ult. Faker responds with his own ult, hits Kuro, does not hit Spirit. Peanut E's over the wall. Kuro ends up flashing away. Antara comes in. We get switched over to bot lane here, but Syndra is taken out because she is stuck in the wall with a Trundle pillar, and then Trundle's even able to return to top lane with perfectly fine amount of health. Faker is really popping off though, and if Syndra isn't able to be strong enough to even, say, kill Callista, let alone kill the Cassiopeia, then there's not going to be much to be done. Faker getting caught out here, but the Gragasol is going to come for the disengage. He goes ahead and he Qs that minion, and he actually he got that cannon minion, plus 47 gold. That was impressive. Antara getting a lot of damage onto the top lane tower, and look at this damage. Now, this is Trundle by himself. No one else has touched the top tower. So this was a very smart pick by SKT, and I was in patch 7, I think it was 7.11, might have been 7.12. I was spamming Trundle and solo queue for this exact reason. I would get Tiamat, and I would get Trinity Force, and I would get the top tower at about 10 minutes. And it doesn't really. This is to all elos. This is acceptable in any elo you are, as long as you understand. As long as you can play a champion as simple as Trundle, because you win a lot of lane matchups, and you're gonna push into this tower, and you naturally are able to kill this tower. Because this is something that happens all the time, and it's the same thing as Tristana. Because even though you may get lots of opportunities to hit the tower, some champions are a lot better at destroying towers. So in this case, Trundle hasn't had a lot of time to hit this tower. In fact, if we were to go back in the game, he might have been on that tower for a whole 15 to 20 seconds. And this is early in the game. He doesn't have items, but look at the tower health. The tower has got less than 50% health. That's a big problem for Afreeca freaks, because if Gragas were to make a play top lane, or because Antara is winning this lane really hard. We saw Marin get low multiple times, and even dive Marin. This tower is First Blood tower, and if this tower goes down, then it gives them priority on Rift Herald, and there's no reason for Marin to be playing bot lane because there's no dragon that's up. Not Marin, Peanut. There's no reason for Peanut to be bot lane because there's no dragon to capitalize on. The only reason for him to go bot lane would be to try and get bang fed, but why get bang fed if you can continue to snowball Faker? So there's no reason for Peanut to be outside of this sector. He's going to be like in this area. This is Peanut's area. This is where he's going to camp for the next 5 minutes of the game. Oh, I see. Bang stepped on a trap and then was capitalized on with a hook. That was a very sad mistake by Bang. Both top laners are holding on to quite a bit of gold right now. Marin's starting to scale up a little bit more, so Trundle's going to need more items to deal with him. As while Trundle is really good with levels, Cho'Gath is much better with levels. And as other people level up, Cho'Gath gets stronger too. Then that's because of his E, the new E. So we know Afreeca Freak's blue buff just spawned, and Faker's going to be walking into the blue side jungle to see if he can go ahead and get a steal on that. He's already halfway done it, and it goes ahead and goes down. That's, as a fed Cassiopeia this early in the game, no problem for you to just run over there and do that. He's not even going to be missing any experience, let alone the one minion he may miss to the tower. Spirit's going to be camping bottom lane here, and it looks like he's taken in by the Thresh. Peanut's going to be on the other side of the wall here. Kuro walks through a ward, so Peanut decides not to re-engage. Wolf comes into the side and picks up a Blitzcrank hook. The Syndra ult comes down onto Bang, and Bang gets taken out immediately. Faker flashes forward with his ultimate, but isn't going to be doing anything with that. In the meantime, Marin took the top lane tower and almost got dueled by... or Antara got the top lane tower and almost got dueled by Marin. So we have a lot of exciting things happening. So just out of curiosity, yes, Antara got first blood tower. So we are going to be having a really fed Trundle. As for bottom lane, Afreeca really didn't get much out of that. They got one kill, and then they got a tower, but it wasn't first blood tower. So really, Afreeca has continued to fall negative. So we see the flash E in from Peanut and the ultimate come out, but that is matched by nobody flashed there. His ultimate was just bad. Yeah, the flash E missed and his ultimate was bad. That was very interesting by Peanut. I wouldn't expect that. Very poor play. Because they can SKT can do just about anything with this Cassiopeia here. She can duel everybody in the match. So here's what happened in top lane. Mara got a Q down, and Antara has no mana. The next time Antara is going to be able to duel Marin is with the level 11 ult. And Antara got out there with such little health. That was insane. Ooh. Tusing throws out the hook. Antara sees it. Says he's going to back off. Up to a recall, even though he just recalled. On build paths, we see Gragas with early damage. We see Antara with the Ravenous Hydra completed and the Merc Treads, which are really nice. And he's got a Ruby Crystal. I'm not sure what he's going to be doing with that yet. He's got lots of build paths. So Wolf and Bang are surrounding Marin under the tower here, and we see Antara come in. Let's see. Who's tanking the turret right now? Doesn't matter. Kill gets transferred to Bang. Antara is going to be still in the fight. He doesn't have his ultimate, so he's not very tanky. Remember that this is a Trundle with no tank stats yet. He's purely damage. So in any situation where he's not with his team and someone else is tanking, he's not going to be so useful. Because he's a lot better at skirmishing than he is at team fighting. So and that's one fault of SKT right now. Everyone's building damage. And you could say, oh, I mean, Blitzcrank's not, but Blitzcrank's building support items. So like Blitzcrank's, doing his fucking best. Let's not worry about him. But we have damaged Gragas and damaged Trundle. We don't exactly have a front line, and it's not really necessary for these guys to be building that much damage anyway, because now Faker's really fed. So hopefully we're going to see a lot more tank coming out from Gragas really quickly, and I don't think Antara really needs to build any more damage, even though I recommend Triforce. I don't think it's necessary for him unless he's going to be a permanent split pusher. Which isn't the worst idea in the world. Trundle is very, very good at split pushing. Faker goes ahead and he starts up Dragon again. Faker is not concerned whether or not Peanut is with him for this Dragon. This is going to be the second time He goes ahead and he's really focusing onto it. Peanut gets caught out in the jungle and gives gold to Kuro. That is not good for SKT. Because remember, these are the two carries, and if they get fed, then SKT's gold lead isn't going to mean anything. So Faker soloed the dragon, and Spirit is currently on Rift Herald. We do not know whether... Ooh, unlucky ward. Antara isn't concerned. No one's concerned about the Rift Herald. Pretty much every champion in the game can solo the Rift Herald. It's not really a problem. And maybe SKT already knows, but they're not contesting because they don't have Peanut. But like there could have been a quick rotation. So they hand over the enhanced recall and placement of Rift Herald onto Cho'Gath. And Cho'Gath gets an extra feast stack from eating that Rift Herald. So that is nice. He hasn't been able to get any dragons, but he hasn't been able to get any champions, but now he has one feast stack. So he can have a total of 7, which leads for a total of 6.5% maximum health damage on his E. So not oppressive yet, not nearly as oppressive as it could be. Marn goes ahead and he says, "That's my grump, it's my jungle." The one problem with Marn right now is that in his lane matchup, he would normally be able to contest, but due to mistakes that he has made, he's down about 30 CS. Although because Antara is really pushed up, he knows that he has to be careful because other people can rotate to his lane as long as SKT does not have pressure in one of these lanes. If SKT goes ahead and puts pressure on mid tower, it's going to be a lot more difficult for Afreeca to make the correct decision on whether or not they need to send someone top lane to deal with Antara, because then they may lose mid lane turret, and it's really going to be on whether or not SKT really makes the correct rotations here. But let's actually talk about the setups that could occur in this game right now. There are no major objectives on the map, but there are towers down, and when there are towers down, we have a little bit of understanding on what we could do. So I think that SKT is on to something here. SKT's map rotations right now is actually 100% correct. That you have Trundle in the bottom lane, you have Cassie in the top lane, and you have the bot lane and jungle mid. And why this is really important is because Trundle's able to get pressure on the outer tower here, so this is the outer tower. And because Cass is able to duel anyone, she is going to get pressure on the inner tower. And Cass is ranged, so she still can get pressure on this inner tower. And then you have the bot lane, mid lane, because they can rotate to either lane. They can rotate top or bot when necessary. What this also does is when you put Cass in the top lane, you're going to be protecting this outer tower, and the bot lane in the mid lane is going to be protecting the mid lane outer tower. And because Trundle is always going to be pushing with the Ravenous Hydra, no one's going to be looking for that inner tower in the bottom lane as far as Afreeca's perspective goes. A good response to this would be to a complete match, I would say. I think the only person that could really respond to Cassiopeia in this situation is Syndra, because she's going to have wave clear, right? And her wave clear, while it may compromise her ability to duel with Cassiopeia, Kuro is not going to be interested in dueling with Cassiopeia because Cassiopeia is going to win purely off of stats. Cassiopeia, as you can see, has completed 2 items, and Kuro is still working on a second item, and he's quite a bit away. And then you have the bot lane matching the mid lane, that's standard, and then Cho'Gath is going to go into the bottom lane and try and stop the Trundle from getting turret damage. And that seems to be the proper rotation. Um, we see lots of pings from Afreeca in the bottom side jungle. I don't know what they're doing here, but they have Sejuani bot, and they're going to be pushing really hard in the bot lane. SKT does not falter. They make no mistake. Antara is playing really far back. He knows that there's something weird going on. And you see Peanut moving towards the bottom side. If Antara doesn't get dived so quickly here, SKT is going to be able to respond. Lots of damage going onto the tower. Marin's going to be getting bullied by Faker, and that's going to be something that's going to continue to happen. And it looks like Bang did not rotate. So this full rotation was a win for Afreeca. Because I think because and not that I think it's a win. I know it's a win. It's a win because of the turret damage. They got half health on the inner tower in the bottom lane, and that's the entire trade. Nothing else happened. So if that's not interesting for you, I'm sorry, but that is the entire trade. And why this was a win for Afreeca is because it was so unexpected. And SKT ended up not rotating quickly. And sometimes the most unexpected plays can offer a lot of gain, just because the enemy team will end up making a mistake trying to counter that mistake. What was that? That was a purely panic flash from Bang. That's not going to be good. So there is a problem for SKT in the fact that Caitlyn is now at her 2-item power spike. She just backed and got that. And Bang only has Blade of the Ruin King. So, but it is a problem for Afreeca in the sense that if Caitlyn dies quickly due to the Cassiopeia and Gragas, who are very good at targeting one person, it may nullify that. But if Caitlyn plays very safely, then Caitlyn is going to be able to do a lot of damage and be very annoying. Peanut hovering the side of mid lane, dodges out because he's seen by Spirit. So these are the standard lane assignments that I was talking about. So Afreeca make a rotation mid lane that was very well timed. I just want to know if... No. See, Afreeca had no vision on any of these recalls. So it's very interesting to me that they actually kind of got lucky. They assumed that a lot of these recalls occurred, or maybe they were prepared for some of these recalls to not occur, and they wanted to siege mid anyway. And it would be good to siege mid because you have the fed Caitlyn. But it just so happened to turn out that Blitzcrank and Bang, Blitzcrank and Callista were both recalling, so they ended up losing mid lane tower for free. And now you see that the gold lead is getting very, very close. It's not going to be so heavily in SKT's favor anymore. And while I would argue that it's still in SKT's favor, not just because of the gold lead, but because I'm very fond of Cassiopeia on Faker, since I trust Faker as being one of the more mechanically astute players in the game, that he's able to use a Cassiopeia efficiently as the highest DPS champ in the game. Um, and maybe because of that, he's going to be very strong. Looks like we saw the someone went and looked up on that. Anyway, we saw Trundle completely ignoring Cho'Gath and taking the tower, something that Trundle is very good at. And then we also saw the Rift Herald dropped by Cho'Gath in the top lane, and that goes up and not going to take out the top lane tower, but is going to do a very decent amount of damage on it. So right now SKT are a little bit up, but that could be toppled very quickly because the top lane tower is in what I would like to call a critical position, which means it's ready to be taken down at any point. So if at any point SKT isn't prepared to fight for it, then it will be going down. Bang goes ahead and he gets caught out by Tucson. Tucson's Thresh has proven to be very strong this game. Faker and Peanut are moving towards the mid lane, and that mid lane siege is going to be getting a teleport coming to it as well. We are going to see this 5-man stack from Afreeca Freaks in the mid lane. They want to make sure that they can get the gold lead and get more control of the game. And this is what I was talking about when I was talking about like heavy team fight and hard engage, and why that would be good for Afreeca. Because if the Afreeca again can get ahead in the early game, SKT wouldn't be able to come back. And now, even though they were behind, and they were not behind a lot, this is not nearly this is not nearly a bad game for either team. But because they have Sejuani, they have such hard engage followed up by Thresh that they're able to perform these catches on even champions like Kalista, and it's going to be very difficult for SKT to respond. The only problems that you see coming from Afreeca is the fact that Syndra's down 40 CS. And that shouldn't have ever happened. So SKT is making a very smart play right now. Look at the Baron's health and look how it is it's melting. And that is a result of Cassiopeia, as she is normally the highest DPS champion in the game. So she is always going to be really strong. And you see the teleport come in from Antara. You see Spirit trying to get out of there. Spirit actually gets out with just a little bit of health, but I don't know if the chase will occur. The chase will not occur. Someone's got to go top lane to pick up that CS. I'm going to assume that it's Antara because he just teleported in, so there's no reason for him to leave. But he wants to make sure that he doesn't get collapsed on by lots of people, and it looks like people are going to be rotating up from Afreeca. So this is what I mean by the tower is in critical position. At any point that SKT is not prepared to fight it, it goes down. So all they had to do was rotate a couple people top, and the tower went down for free. No contest. Faker in the mid lane cleanses the Sejuani ult almost instantly. Very, very crazy gameplay. It looks like SKT is fishing for something here, but Afreeca is not falling for the bait. Afreeca's not very concerned with the actual semantics of the gameplay. They only want plays where they can see all the variables, and they take those plays, and that's how they've been playing this game, and it's been working very well for them. So they don't want to take anything where there's too many unknowns. So Faker's going to be pushing this big minion wave in the bot lane, and Baron buff on everybody on SKT. Lots of damage going out on this turret. half health already, and this is just the one minion wave. Being going to be running away in the jungle from Sejuani. SKT goes ahead and they take the mid turret. Hook down onto Spirit. Spirit's going to be taken down instantly. Tusing gets the hook, but Bang takes Wolf away with the Kalista ultimate. Kalista ultimate moves back, is not going to be used aggressively. And you're going to see a lot of pressure coming out from SKT because they just got a very, very smart free Baron, and this Baron power play is leading to a lot. We see the Righteous Glory coming out from Marin. Faker comes out with the ultimate, but Faker's going to hit by the Kuro stun. Lots of damage. The ultimate from Syndra comes out, cleans him up, but that doesn't matter because in the top lane, you have Trundle split pushing. And you now turrets all across the board have gone down for SKT. So let's talk about why this happened. Let's talk about why. Let's start with the Baron play. So SKT gets Baron, and let's figure out what they do with this Baron and what they do specifically. So SKT has a heavy split pusher. That would be the Trundle. And hold on, I don't know what the hell Trundle's build is right now because Trundle is Spirit Visage Ravenous Hydra. So Trundle is going to be an amazing split pusher because he's going to be really fucking hard to kill and he can just sustain in lane for a long time. So the Cassiopeia and Peanut duo the Baron mostly via Cassiopeia because Cassiopeia has all that DPS. And the Baron ends up being a two-man Baron and gets taken out before Spirit's able to respond. Spirit flashes in, and he's going to get almost taken out. The Blast Plant's going to be used just to make sure to secure his health and safety there. But let's look at what SKT does with this. They send Antara top lane, they send Cassiopeia bottom lane, and they send 3 mid lane. So this is definitely the famous 1-3-1, and because it's a Baron 1-3-1, the pressure across the map is actually too much to deal with. Now, why this is a problem is because when you run a 1-3-1 and you run high damage comps, it becomes very easy for you to find a window, where you can Baron for free. And when you then move into the 1-3-1, each lane is actually going to be providing enough pressure yes. So that an equal match will not prevent turret damage. Will not prevent loss, and this is loss in any way, shape, or form. When I think of loss, I think of kills, I think of turret damage, I think of turrets themselves, I think of dragons, but if they send one top lane, that one isn't going to stop Trundle. If they send one bottom lane, that one isn't going to stop Cassiopeia. And if they send 3 mid lane, that's not going to stop 3 mid lane, and this is the effect of the 1-3-1 with Baron. And it's a very easy, simple win condition of SKT to get this. And Faker's death here is not in vain. It's not even a problem. Because look at how they have 3 bot here, and now they're losing top tower. So they get 1 kill for another tower, and they had already lost a tower, and they lost a tower in mid lane. And you're looking at a 3,000, 4,500. It's going to be a 4,200 power play on Baron. That's going to be a 4,200 gold power play. And they still have Baron buff. The Baron buff is not gone. So the last thing we're going to be looking for is key item spikes that we're going to be seeing from SKT. And we see the Randuin's Omen come out for Trundle. We see the Knight's Vow has been completed. That might have been already completed and I just hadn't mentioned it. And it's probably on Cassiopeia. And then you see Faker has the Seraph's Embrace, and he just popped his shield on that. I'm not sure what that was, but he has the Seraph's Embrace. And you see the Runans and a Quicksilver Sash come out for Bang. So Bang also now can't be focused by the Syndra ult, or if he is, it's not going to be too successful. You see a very healthy blue steal by Afreeca Freaks. And now we have Antara splitting in the top lane. So all SKT has to do really right now is prevent Afreeca from gaining anything, and let their Trundle do a lot of work in the side lane. And when Trundle occupies more than one person, then they can go ahead and make a play in the mid lane. They should be able to get this mid lane inner tower for free. So they do that now. They realize everybody's rotating. The flash comes out from Sejuani, but she still ends up taking a lot of damage. About half health goes down on the turret. Faker ends up dodging the hook and the Syndra stun. They're going to be wave clearing really quickly. Marin's going to be rotating up on the sidelines since he was pushing a side lane. We do have Dragon up in a minute, and that may be forcing a fight. What dragon is it? I think it's a wind dragon. Yeah, I believe it's a wind dragon. So SKT is probably going to be prioritizing that so that they can get double wind dragon, which is a lot more powerful. And is when I actually start thinking that wind dragon is a very good objective. Because I think having just one wind dragon doesn't really mean too much. Whereas once you have two, it changes the game. That extra about 40 movement speed ends up changing all of your rotations. Whereas in the beginning, it's only about 25. And why I say 40 is because your movement speed is actually capped, and so you only get a percentage of what you actually have after that. So once you have Wind Dragon, it's giving you 75 movement speed, but it's not actually giving you 75 movement speed. You don't get all of it. So, wow, we see the team fight coming out here. Hook going down to Antara. Cho'Gath gets eaten. The Kalista ultimate goes on to Spirit, and Spirit gets eaten. And the carries on Afreeca can't do anything. There's nothing to be done. Let's look at why this was a bad fight, because I'm not really sure what Afreeca Freaks is doing right now. Because if Afreeca Freaks are down about 3,000 gold, and they're down a Wind Dragon, but that's not stats, so we're not gonna worry about that. They're down about 3,000 gold. So this is about an item. So they're down about an item in a team fight. And you can kind of relate this to, say, a 1v1 where you have 2 items, and say the enemy has 3 items. And that's a big difference, right? A 1 item difference is going to change a lot of factors in that 1v1, and so it's going to do that in the 5v5 as well. And it may not be as impactful, but you're talking about stats on every single champion that Afreeca doesn't have. So even though Afreeca does have the teamfight comp, which is probably superior in most cases, they aren't able to do anything with it because they aren't strong enough. So what Afreeca is actually supposed to be looking to do is Afreeca looks for picks and free objectives. After creating a man advantage. And this shouldn't be that hard. I don't know why Afreeca Freaks doesn't know that they currently cannot be looking for a 5v5 fight. Because the only way they would win a 5v5 fight is if they manage to kill Faker in the beginning, and because Faker has cleanse and flash, that's never going to happen. And then they'd have to end up killing Bang, who is going to be putting out quite a bit of DPS by himself. And because the other two, the top laner and the jungler for SKT also built a decent amount of damage, they're also going to be a problem in the fight. So the only thing I could see happening is if Faker gets knocked up by a Cho'Gath Q, which would be a huge mistake, and he gets flash chomped by Gargoyle Stoneplate into Sejuani ult and Sejuani Q and Syndra ult and a Caitlyn headshot or a trap, and then the fight occurs, and that would happen before the fight actually occurs, so Faker would be useless in that fight. But that's not happening. So Afreeca, I don't know what they're doing because they can't be looking for this fight. So and look at the positioning from SKT. Oh, look at the positioning from SKT. This is absolutely beautiful. You have the carries in the back line, then you have a bruiser and the support, and then you have Gragas who's ready to flank, and he's ready to flank with his cask, and he can knock carries into the zone of danger, which is what you would call the bruiser zone in a team fight, because there's a zone in a team fight where a lot of the tanks generally accrue. So I call that the bruiser zone, and when a carry is in the bruiser zone, they end up dying very quickly. It's kind of like you're like this 100-pound or like 50-kilogram dude, and you enter a fight club, and the club is like, hey dude, you're up to fight next, and you walk in the ring, and you're sitting there and you're 100 pounds, and the guy standing in front of you is 6'5", and he's 210 pounds of like raw muscle. So this is like a problem. And because look at how Afreeca's set up. They don't have this line. They don't have this two areas of setup. They have a line in which they're together, and they have Cho'Gath who's trying to flank from the side. So their positioning is wrong and their setup is wrong. And then so Cho'Gath gets pulled in by Blitzcrank. And then you see the bruiser zone that's occurring. You see, Gragas is getting low, and Cho'Gath is getting low, and Sejuani's in the bruiser zone. And this bruiser zone occurs, but Cho'Gath gets absolutely melted. And now that since Cho'Gath wasn't as tanky as, say, Trundle, Trundle outlasted him, and now Trundle can go attack other targets. And so the carries on Afreeca just aren't strong enough to either take down the tanks or find an opening onto one of the carries, Faker or Bang, in order to kill one of the carries. So this team fight should have never occurred, and this mistake by Afreeca Freaks was really searching for the fight in the first place. At this point, it would be very difficult for me to believe that SKT isn't able to win, because they're going to get this turret here, and they're going to be approaching a 4,500 gold lead. Actually, they're going to be pushing in on the inhib. No, they're choosing not to go to the inhib. They're choosing to go to the Wind Dragon. So it looks like they're going to Wind, and then to back, and then to Baron. And this is really strong. So you're seeing that 5,000 gold lead. So this is tipping point. And you see Faker soloing his like third dragon of the game. That's nice. And it no longer seems winnable. No longer appears winnable by Afreeca. And this fight ruined it for Afreeca. They weren't so far behind before this happened, but there was no reason for this fight to happen at all. So anyway, you see lots of red pings going on to Baron. You see blue pings going on to Baron. So because Afreeca is at tipping point, and what I mean by tipping point is about that 5,000 gold lead, where they They either have to. This is when they have to start making high risk plays if they want to win. So high, and this is just a general rule of thumb. High risk, high reward is viable. In the first game, we saw SKT only playing low risk, low reward, and this is a playstyle that you see a lot more in these better games in Korea, and a lot of these Worlds games that are going to be coming up are going to be a lot more low risk, depending on what region you're watching. Don't be don't be too excited for different regions playing that same exact playstyle. We're definitely going to see some high risk regions showing their prowess in understanding these high risk situations. So Afreeca says, okay, we can try to Baron, and if we get the Baron, we can win the game. And if we don't get the Baron, we'll just end up losing altogether. And maybe that's better than just passively losing. So Faker's in top lane, pushing out top lane. Afreeca go ahead and move on to the Baron here. Fast damage going to be coming out, a couple thousand damage a second. They peel off. Not very exciting. Antara looks like he's a little too far into enemy zone. Faker continuing to push out top lane. They're starting to get a big wave in top lane. And now that they have this big wave in top lane, they go ahead and group onto Dragon here, or onto Baron here. Very interesting. There's no vision. The Trundle pillar with the Blitzcrank hook both miss. Afreeca goes ahead and they push mid lane. They say, you can't Baron because we'll take your inhibitor, and then you'll lose pressure. Because if Afreeca get an inhibitor, this game will change very, very much. Kuro trying to steal away with a blue buff here. Does not manage to get it. He messes up on his damage a little bit. There was a way to do that, I'm sure, but the way he did it was wrong. Peanut eating over the wall. Faker's just staying in lieu of Baron, wants to know when we're gonna do it, when we're gonna fight, when we're gonna win the game. And that slow push that Faker set up in top lane that I mentioned earlier, no one dealt with that slow push, and that was the mistake by Afreeca, because it was about here, which means Afreeca could have sent multiple members through the jungle and actually stopped the slow push, and then set up another slow push that went towards the top side of SKT, and they didn't realize this. They did not realize the slow push. So SKT says, we have a slow push in top lane on your inhibitor. That's lots of inhibitor damage. We're gonna start Baron. Looks like Tucson is going to be picked off. A lot of damage does go out to SKT, and SKT is not going to be going for the Baron. SKT is going to be going for this top lane where they had the slow push, and they're going to try and push it down as fast as possible, and they have the Trundle. Look at the Trundle damage. Kalista comes in there and cleans it up. They're going to be looking for the inhibitor here. They're fishing for it. They're fishing for a Blitzcrank hook. The Blitzcrank hook does not hit. Cassiopeia W comes out. Afreeca Spirit and Marin are looking forward. Cinder Stun goes ahead and hits on Tara. They're going to go ahead and finish the inhibitor, and they're going to back off, and they're going to start moving towards Baron again. And it looks like one tower in the bottom lane is going to be going down for Afreeca Freaks. And that's just going to be a result of bad lane setup by SKT. So in the past 2 minutes, we have seen bad lane setup by SKT and Afreeca, or misunderstanding slow pushes. So we see Antara teleporting in here. Peanut standing in the sidelines, and Peanut manages to hit the smite here. And let's just, this is a legendary smite, so I want to see it again. I want to see it nice and clear. because Cho'Gath can ult Baron for about Cho'Gath can ult Baron for about, I don't know, 1500 damage, 1800 damage. It's a ridiculous amount. So it was really interesting that the smite went out by Spirit. So Spirit went ahead and smited so that Cho'Gath could ult, and in that time in between, Marin was trying to realize that he could have ulted the Baron. Peanut ease in and he gets the smite. And it just seemed really odd to me that this miscommunication occurred on the side of Afreeca Freaks, in which it actually gave Peanut an opportunity, because Peanut should have never had an opportunity to steal that Baron because he has no burst, and his smite in this stage of the game does about 800 damage. So he hit the Baron with his E in the smite and he got it, which was insane. Very, very crazy capitalization by Peanut. Now that SKT have the second Baron, this game's over. There's nothing Afreeca can do. As you can see, Faker was soloing the backline, absolute insane amounts of damage. Spirit's going to try and go ahead and get banged down here, but he doesn't really have too much damage either because he's Sejuani, and that's going to be the over. And this was an insane series, and I can't wait to actually go over the next games. I'm gonna be doing all of LCK playoffs, and I'll probably be doing all of NALCS playoffs too. But thank you for watching, and that's my analysis and it's my take on SKT versus Afreeca Freaks Game 2, and that's their series. So SKT's going to Worlds. Anyway, like, comment, ask for free coaching, hit me up, let me know. Bye.